Right, okay. So I'm going to be talking about sketch-ins, which are sketching-oriented design activity, collaborative design activities, meant for both novice practitioners and experts as well. And whereas I think up to this point we've been talking at a quite conceptual level about the things that need to be in this MOOC, this activity is quite applied and quite focused on what's the learner going to actually interact with? What are the pieces that the learner needs to see and use in order to engage with the content? And normally this would be the sort of thing that you would work with a UI designer or the user experience person to hash out, but in that case that's us, I think, and so it makes sense for us to think quite clearly and deeply about what the user is going to interact with, the learner is going to interact with. So for the MOOC, I think this could also compose some of the content of the MOOC because it's one of the possible tools in the toolkit that a learning designer can consider when doing the activity of learning design. So it also, sketch-ins or active collaborative sketching encourage local activities, and if we think that one of the things that learners should do is to engage locally where possible, this is the kind of activity that you could center, that you could have 2 or 3 people meet, center them around that activity, and learn something from doing it, if that's possible. In the Coursera course that I participated in recently at Stanford, the one on HCI, there were many users or many learners who were in the same environment, very relatively close to each other, and they did actually go to a coffee house and meet up and discuss the course content and do some activities that they, found valuable. And in fact, some of the course conveners turned up at a couple of these events. So that was interesting to see that. So today I want to try out a sketch-in amongst ourselves based on the problems that we've been working through, and in fact it's quite handy that we've got to this point because you wouldn't be able to just dive in and start sketching something without having at least come to a beginning understanding of what the problem space is. So I included these slides not to be didactic here, but really because if this gets used at some other point, it's useful to have this background knowledge captured in some way. Sketching, as I think you know, is very commonly used in design-based fields, and I think none of us would argue that learning design is a design activity, certainly. And so it's a valuable technique that can also be applied to learning design, and I've tried to rationalize a somewhat principled approach to using sketching to hash through design problems for technology-enhanced learning. It has specific benefits which are supported both by practitioners' experiences and in research. Mostly it supports communication around a problem and helps to play with ideas and elicit them and make them real in the world. As well, it can be used to support exploring half-baked ideas or concepts which may be relevant to the problem of the learning design, but may not be quite clearly understood or fleshed out. So there's research, I'm just putting this to say there is research that supports using sketching as a design method for this kind of problem. I'm not going to go into great detail right now. But there are some specific things that the research shows that sketching does, and I would like to sort of highlight those. It invites design ideas from everyone in the team, okay, because ideally you're getting things from the heads of people who are around the table onto a piece of paper. You're manifesting in the world that which is locked inside. And that sounds kind of facile, perhaps, but it's critical because it exposes preconceptions and raises questions about what the team might engage with, the problems that need to be engaged with. Also, as far as creativity, once you see an idea that's made real on the page or on the paper, it often triggers ideas that you might have in your own head, and you can riff off of them and work together to explore what potential it might have for solving the design problem. And maybe identify some solutions to these problems. There's only a couple more of these slides. I want to get right down to it. So I've rationalized a sort of principled approach to this, which starts out with framing the area for the inquiry, which I think we've been involved in doing all day today, and so I think we have a pretty good, we've set ourselves up well to do some sketching. Then you would organize a session as we're doing now. You'd run a session, which usually would be about 2 hours, maybe more, maybe less, with a design team of 4 people, maybe 5, but ideally no more than can sit comfortably around a table, because you want everyone to have a chance to input into it. And then you would collect data in some way, and I think it's great that we're collecting data in the way we are today. If you were doing a sketch-in for a learning design solution of some kind, you would want to have ways of collecting the data as well, through videos, through cameras, through audio recordings, and if you're feeling really technologically savvy, through electronic pens, which I've got very excited about. Katerina will know that. That actually capture what's written on the page and make a PDF out of it and replay the audio that was captured at the time that the drawing was made. But you don't have to use the high tech. You can use something as simple as what we have here today, which is just big pieces of paper and some pens and pencils. So that's what we're going to do. I kind of touched on this a bit. I'm not going to reiterate it. Oh, wait, that's backwards. There we go. But there are some specific stages of sketching activity which is important to maybe highlight or think about. There's the ramping up stage where you're getting people familiar with what the problem is and with each other, specifically if particularly if you're working with a team that hasn't done sketching before or hasn't worked in this way before. They need a little time to become comfortable. And after they've gotten over the initial hurdle of the idea of trying to sketch things out and understanding each other, there's this sort of fluency in the activity. Very often people will become much more animated. Then after you've decided that enough sketching has gone on, and I think as a facilitator you kind of get this notion pretty easily within the first hour and a half, you've covered some of the major issues. Then you can regroup and discuss the problems with each other and decide what's important and what's not important, and refine those decisions, and then close the session. So there's a book chapter in the Routledge book on learning design that's coming out soon that describes this in much more detail, but this is good for now. So let's not waste any more time. I want to get several large sheets of this paper, at least 1 or 2 for each table. I kind of want you to clear off all of these techno gadgets because they have not to do with what we're coping with today. So let's clear off our tables.
If you need more paper, I've put a whole pile down there. There's more pens as well if you want more pens. Again, over on the floor by the cabinet over there.
So what I would like you to do for this activity is to choose maybe one of the most compelling topics that we have uncovered in the previous activity and in the other activities as well, such as the ecology of resources and the narratives we generated this morning, and use those as a starting point to sketch out what the user might experience, what they might interact with, what would they need to see on screen. Okay, what would need to be there? And if you're having a hard time getting started, you could choose perhaps one of these cards as an inspiration to say, okay, well, peer support. What are the elements that are going to need to see for peer support?